is Shemon Salam from New York City, and he is a member of the East Coast Revolutionary Collective and also a member of the Network of Advanced Struggle of the Black Market Collective.
All right. So this might be a strange way to, I saw the title of the panel, it was something like Revolutionary Organization and Moving Forward. And, I've been a revolutionary since 2001, not as long as some of the comrades here, but I've put in my 10 years so far. Hopefully we'll put in many more years. And, over the years I've flipped through from Lenin to Luxembourg to Johnson, C.L.R. James, Walter Rodney on questions of organization. And, I helped build and played a key role in a group called Unity and Struggle from 2004 to 2009. And I found out over time that in a lot of ways, as smart and as brilliant and as dynamic as those organizations and movements were, some of the mechanics of building revolutionary organization I found missing between the words that I was constantly looking for. And I thought a lot about this after I'd left Unity and Struggle and had turned 30. As a moment to kind of reflect on where I had been, where I'd spent many, many years of my life. As I saw, I remembered being 20 and sitting in a room with younger militants, black, Arab, Muslim women, and, talking about how we were going to dedicate our lives to the struggle, how we were willing to go to jail for each other. Very, very powerful moments. But when I turned 30, I also realized none of these people are here today. And I asked myself, where are they? Is this 1970 where black militants, Latino militants are being hunted down and killed for politics, being jailed for politics, being forced into exile for politics? And I thought about the state of the movement and I said, generally that is not the case today. That's not what's happening. So why did these people leave? Why aren't they here with me today? And there's probably many reasons. But if I had to give one reason from for me, a political perspective, it was that they lost their own political perspective. They were demoralized. I remember when the anti-war movement was happening, I was such a naive person. I literally thought, while my mother was dying, that I should not be in the hospital and organize against the war because I felt we could stop the war. And looking back, I realized that there was no way based on the current characteristics of the movement that we probably had any chance. Not when you looked at what it took to stop Vietnam. So, over the years, I've really valued the importance of political theory, political perspectives, the clarity of that. And I ran into a group of young Latino, South Asian, black and white of the spectrum of New York, the New York kind of racial, working class landscape in Queens. And I've changed this person's name, named Jose. And he told me what it meant for him to read about the Russian Revolution. And he said, all my life I had thought my parents, my working class Latino parents, were idiots and morons. Because everywhere I looked, I saw that we could not achieve anything. And he said, but when I finally read the history of the Russian Revolution, I finally believed that my people, my oppressed people, working class people, could achieve something. And I found that to be very fascinating. I mean, I've heard those stories many, many times before. I've experienced that reading the autobiography of Malcolm X. But it struck a nerve this time because over the years, I had kept running into this peculiar problem that when I went into a lot of revolutionary groups or the anti-capitalist movements, people would say, I hate books. I hate theory. Theory is academic. And, I was very confused for a while, what's going on here? And then one day I took this crew of working class militants to a meeting of other revolutionaries. And we got into the same old debate of how books suck and all these other type of things. And I met up with the crew that I rolled with, these working class 18, 17-year-old kids, a lot of them who've dropped out of high school, and said, what did you think about that meeting? And they said it was the most bizarre conversation we've ever had. We could tell that these people had been reading books. We aren't confused. We can tell by the way they talk because they don't talk like us. us. So when we step into a room and discuss revolutionary organization, why are they denying our freedom to read? Because I can tell that all these people read in private. And then when we come together, we're not allowed to read. And one of these young men dropped out of 8th grade. He never completed 8th grade. So for him to be able to read is probably many people in this room have worked with people who have trouble reading. And when that breakthrough happens, I'm sure people in this room know what that's like. To be a part of that breakthrough is one of the small reasons we're certainly revolutionaries, and especially when it leads to political clarity and a belief that this system isn't permanent and that communism, or if other folks want to call it anarchism, is possible. It is a really beautiful moment. The other thing that I've been thinking a lot about is, many years ago, I had some older militants, revolutionaries from 1968, tell me that revolutionaries are special. I really didn't understand what that meant. You know, as I've been reflecting on being 30, I'm kind of starting to realize what that means, especially as I meet more and more older militants from the 1968 generation. And frankly, I stay up late quite a bit thinking, you know, these people who have fought so hard, many who are no longer here today because of exile, because of being assassinated, those who remain are going to pass away soon. And those who remain will have to continue that legacy. We'll have to continue that tradition at a point where we'll have to continue that tradition. And what worries me is that generation experienced a high point of struggle in the United States, in the context of the United States, and they will no longer be here. And for the first time in decades, we will no longer have a direct link to that experience. And for some reason that has bothered me. And I've wondered, well then, I've started to take on that point that revolutionary told me, wow, maybe we are special. There's not exactly a lot of us these days. The other thing that I've been thinking a lot about is the movie Facebook. I would really recommend people see it, because I really appreciate the Kasama blog for its desire and its argument about we need to have debate in the revolutionary left. And what amazed me about the movie Facebook when I saw it a year ago was, what do the capitalists do? They got gazillions of dollars, they take supposedly very smart young people, put them in a geographic location, and of course they drink and do all kinds of crazy shit. But the other interesting thing they do is they argue shit out. They have these weird conversations that we never know what they exactly mean until they accomplish something, and looking back, the meaning of all those conversations get aligned to a purpose. And I do feel, for all the attempts at democratic debate, I do feel, we still have a very, very long way to go in the American left. I'm not going to say anything about the international left, but in this context, we certainly have a long way to go. The last thing I'll say is, I think what's helped me as I've helped, build unity and struggle, and now working with other comrades in Advance the Struggle, BOC, and the East Coast folks, is also thinking about what is the role of a coach. I've also liked the fact that there's a growing current in the U.S. that says we shouldn't be so leadership-centric. We need to have, arguably millions of leaders. So I'm like, okay, that's very easy to say. But what does that look like? How do you do that? I love sports, so I study a lot of coaches and be like, how do they bring together these crazy amount of athletes, put them on a basketball court or a soccer field, and they do things that really amaze us and defy our understanding of what humans can do in physical and mental ways. And I'm like, what's interesting about all great coaches is they're always looking for someone who can do that thing much better than they can. And I've really thought about the egoism in the movement, the type of debates that happen, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not sure that we've reached a point where we're looking for talented working class people who one day will ultimately teach us how to do it, what to do, and all that kind of stuff. Because if I look at the behavior we have and the egoism involved in many of the projects we do, I'm like, if we built a team, if we were the people to build teams, sports teams, we'd get 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds, because God forbid that the players end end up one day becoming the teachers of the coaches. I'm not confident that the left really has the same skill set as these sports teams. I'm really not sure anymore because of what I've seen the last 10 years. People say it a lot. People say, I love listening to this strong person of color, blah, 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 blah. But the amount of work that it takes to develop, with these young high school dropouts and high school students is unimaginable. People in this room, I would hope, know the amount of work it takes to get people to be competent, to read Leon Trotsky's History of the Russian Revolution, to write a flyer, to be able to speak in a crowd. It takes a lot of work. And the whole point is, I want them to be able to do it better than me and better than the past generation of 1968 militants. And if it's any less than that, I'm building a cult. Thank you.